Adam Smith said, the best result comes from everyone in the group doing what's best for himself, right? That's what he said, that's right? Incomplete. Incomplete. Okay? Because the best result would come from everyone in the group doing what's best for himself and the group. If we all go for the blonde, we block each other. Not a single one of us is going to get her. So then we go for her friends. But they will all give us the cold shoulder because nobody likes to be second choice. But what if no one goes for the blonde? We don't get in each other's way, and we don't insult the other girls. That's the only way we win. That's the only way we all get laid.
Ayo, DSP projecting here, and what Russell Crowe didn't take into account is that DSP doesn't get laid. He gets cucked by PPP, LTG, IRS, ALT, AMT, and Duty Stream. Today's video will be a little bit different. No DSP clips in this one, but more of just a commentary on how for game theory to be effective, there needs to be an accurate understanding of the reality that this game is operating in. Watching Phil is fascinating because it's incredible to see someone so readily document their own inability to properly assess the reality they exist in. Back when I was getting my business style degree from Gudger College.
I'm sorry, I'm not as smart as you, Kirk. We didn't all go to Gudger College.
In many accounting and marketing style classes, there were projects that would be based on what were referred to as accounting fact patterns. You would be provided information, a reality per se, and be graded on how well you could do the specific assignment operating within those parameters. You couldn't just do or assume anything, especially if it was in blatant contradiction to the facts provided. The plan is to provide a fact pattern here in this video, one that unbiasedly defines the situation that DSP put himself in, and then use game theory to expand on DSP's actual situation. The outline on screen shows that the first step here is to gather relevant information, specifically financial statements. So welcome to the DSP accounting fact pattern. This part is going to be a bit dry, but it's necessary to provide any credence to the things that are going to be extrapolated from it later on. It's also done to protect it from any claims of being detractor biased. It's spelled out line by line, so if there is a disagreement with something presented in it, it can be examined at a granular level. Starting with financial statements, we have the bankruptcy paperwork, which is independently verifiable information. Next, we have the bank leaks, which, while not technically verified, numerous members of the community, including Broside Phil, have performed audit procedures on that documentation, and based on those procedures performed, the bank leaks appear materially accurate, and I feel comfortable relying upon them for this video. With that being said, I just want to go over some vocab real quick. With context, I trust that you know how I'm using them. I just want to explicitly define them to encourage the community to use them in their own discourse of Phil. First, we have material, like materiality or materially, the last of which is defined as substantially or considerably. Next is qualified, in the context of not being complete or absolute. And finally, clearly trivial, the amount below which misstatements are considered trivial and don't need to be accumulated. We all know DSP spent $80 on stamps at Costco. I could say that DSP materially overpaid for stamps, considering an individual stamp only cost 73 cents at the time of recording. On the other end of the spectrum, I could argue that this stamp expense is clearly trivial, not even the cost of one pull, an occurrence that happens so often that this $80 is just a drop in the bucket. Either way I go though, I would still need to qualify that statement with that while the purchase was stupid, it's probably one of the best investments DSP has made recently, as historically the price of stamps usually goes up and now he's locked in. Now that's out of the way, I just want to backtrack for a quick tangent. I had mentioned audit procedures done on the bank leaks by community members, in addition to Broside Phil, TP, which stands for Triple P, which isn't what I like to call him because I call him Ashton, I mean TP now. Well, TP performed audit procedures during the last Grill Phil segment referred to as inquiry, which just means to ask a motherfucker. And well, per usual, DSP was not able to offer any real response that would make one think those weren't his bank leaks. In this reality, it doesn't really matter if you like TP or not. He seems like a skilled entertainer with good showmanship abilities, especially when it comes to this DSP sideshow. Getting a $25,000 trip to Vegas paid for takes skill. I don't think one can make an argument he's not good at what he does. Next, we'll go over the facts of the case. I might be off like a year on the age, and yes, he has the stamps now. But other than that, if there's any disagreement with anything I'm about to state, please let me know in the comments down below. The dude is 42 years old and has not started savings. His words, not mine. There's a card on screen for a video I did on it and link in the description below. DSP has a wife cat and a cat Jasper. DSP stated they cannot and will not travel because of the cat, and to clarify, I said the cat, not just cat. When DSP first introduced Just Cat, not the cat, she was skinny. She's currently fat. And that last fact will transition us to the final part of the dry stuff, which is the timeline of actions and decisions. The Connecticut condo was purchased pre-2014. The Washington condo was purchased in 2014. Just Cat Skinny Style moves in late 2017. They were married in April of 2019. It's missing from my timeline, but I'm fairly certain the research I did had Jasper being adopted after the marriage and being revealed in late 2019. The bankruptcy occurred in 2020 and the resurgence in 2024, and this is also when the fat cat reveal happened. And this is where it all gets interesting, where we can apply game theory to not only predict the downfall of DSP, but also try to shed some light on a past he likes to keep purposefully murky. Checking out this tweet, let's see if it's able to operate within the confines of the fact pattern that I had just set. Skipping the first sentence, let's look at the second, which is DSP thought he was getting a soulmate, but instead just got the burden of her health problems. Phil constantly brags of his weight loss, how he's currently healthier than he has ever been, and how he's even cured himself of the chronic condition of gout. All of the appointments he goes to, though, they aren't fun or worth the embarrassment of discussing to the audience of trolls. As documented in my Medica React video, card on screen and also linked below, Phil seemed genuinely upset about the idea of sharing medical records. Phil didn't want another Panda Lee. Well, he wanted another Caucasian girlfriend because Panda Lee was not Asian, but he didn't want another person who would push back. Someone who wouldn't be strong enough to make jokes about how they were sexually repressed by Phil. He then took too much corrective action, and his new candidate for soulmate ended up being too weak. Never did he think he would be taking her to so many appointments. But that raises the question, does he take her because they are that physically rough for her, or does he have to go because they're mental health appointments that involve both of them? I'm no Steve of the Dead, but I think it's fair to say either physical or mental health problems can lead to weight gain. So I don't even need to point at a specific one out as definitely correct, and I'm still able to reach the same conclusion. And honestly, I don't want to even get into Cat's physical health too much, even I find it kinda slimy. But you're the motherfucker who asked your audience if he should accept TP's apology for upsetting you with his accurate observation. So yeah, we in this shit, somebody's gotta shovel it. And I shovel it in the third sentence of the tweet. As she got sicker and heavier, he got skinnier due to resentment. I already mentioned his weight loss, which is polar opposite of his wife's situation. Moving on to the resentment part, imagine a soulmate who's unable to go to the store independently. Heck, it doesn't even appear that she was able to load a washer evenly. If Kat had any level of competency, I would expect the distribution of household duties to be a bit different. DSP probably thought, she'll get better at housework once we're married because she'll want to prove how good of a wife she is to me. And she probably thought if they got married, he might interact with her sexually. After a weird, rushed, lied about in-home style marriage, I think both of them need to brush up on game theory. And continuing to build on this idea of resentment, this motherfucker took a honeymoon off the table cause of a cat. He's gone as far to state something along the lines of, if he left Jasper alone in the house, it would traumatize him, and that just isn't an option. Imagine, your cat, you and your husband have such a little understanding of game theory that neither of you think, let's put off getting a cat until we travel for our honeymoon. On top of that, your husband believes in his mind that he has solved the classic thought experiment of Schrodinger's cat. Only DSP could know what's happening to an unobserved cat in a shitty condo, box. And Jesus fucking Christ, his answer to the question that's impossible to answer means you don't get to go to Japan. And yeah, I called it a condo. It doesn't deserve to be called a house. He's the real-life Michael Scott who lives in some plywood box in a gated community that he has to pay for them to tell him what he can and can't do. Speaking of the gated community, let's combine that with my statement of resentment, game theory, and DSP's own statements. Pop quiz hotshot, name one of the 75 reasons I would never live in a gated community.
Now, we will block the Persian coastal assault by rebuilding the Great Ocean Wall, and from there we will funnel them into the mountain pass we call the Hot Gates. Now in that narrow corridor, their numbers will count for nothing.
I'm not here to make a joke about narrow corridors and cats' large numbers. The Hot Gates, they're a bottleneck, and we all know bottlenecks are to game theory as glory holes are to gold mining. You're Phil, you're scared for your life, and you moved into a gated community to protect yourself. Personally, I would see the bottleneck as providing more danger than benefit. If someone wanted to come in from out of state to beat me up with little to no consequences, they would definitively know one point in my path of travel. And if they could beat me up before I got through my gate, I will not have any benefit to defending myself on my own land versus public egress. Fact patterns in game theory allow for risk mitigation, though. If I was in this position to mitigate risk, I just wanted to announce my comings and goings. The only time DSP has ever announced his wife has come is the exact time she comes home from work, live as it happens, pretty much every time it happens. Card on screen, link below for the video I did on this horrifying habit. The man who can't share his WWE Champion's account privately to Craig loves to announce his wife's location and approximate times of travel to his enemies. Make it make sense. He hates that bitch. Notice how in my videos I've never really discussed the significant other, and even more specifically their travel manifests. How I never mentioned their nickname for me as John Nash instead of Steve Nash, because even though I'm taller than both, I'm better at game theory than basketball? No, I never say any of that. Everything I just said, I believe is able to coexist without apparent contradiction. A defined reality, one that makes sense. There needs to be this foundation for game theory, and I think that's lost on a lot of people, this crucial first step. It seemed like the women at the bar in the movie were there to flirt. It's valid to theorize different possibilities based on that assumption. Phil thinks that he has a real audience that wants to contribute based on the quality of his work. Phil thinks the quality of his work can be increased by adding RGB. Phil is making decisions based on these assumptions, his reality. But I don't believe his ideas will pan out, because while Phil believes he's applied game theory and will get an expected outcome, Phil's reality is flawed and it's not going to pan out like that in the real world. The way I see it is Phil has the inability to take decisive action and always defaults to using the term we, so responsibility can be transitioned to the other party when he ultimately fails due to his myopic thought process. He even did this when deciding if he should accept an apology for TP calling his wife fat. This is the reality Phil operates in, and if this dude doesn't accept that he needs to reassess this, he is fucked. His investment in the business will show no actual ROI, which is pretty wild that return on investment is not a term used by DSP when all he does is talk about investments. Is it because there are never any returns to talk about? Also, I believe in Phil's reality, he's greatly underestimated me.
You think I don't know about this artsy-fartsy crap? This coffee table isn't the ego. It represents our shattered sense of community in the face of capitalist-driven isolation, much like the work of Cindy Sherman or Frank Stella.
How did you know that, Terry?
I took some classes at RISD so I could make fun of these lame artsy douches in my neighborhood.
Terry, lower your voice.
Hey, I didn't know you could dance. We used to do those dance moves to make fun of guys when we were kids, show them how queer they were, okay?
You learned to dance like that sarcastically?
Yeah, I guess. Stay out of my personal life, okay? The kid flies private.
I went to Gudger for accounting, Phil. I like having hobbies like most human-style individuals, and if I can develop those hobbies and fuck with you, it's two birds with one stone, the most efficient use of my time. You need to look at yourself and ask why an accountant who in September paid him neat $20 to show me how to video edit now has a YouTube channel that's approaching 1,500 subs and 100,000 total views. My monthly views surpass DSP throwbacks and I'm on par with DSP reacts right now. Phil is sitting on a glory hole of content right now. I want to be clear, I'm a detractor through and through, but I'm also not above helping others, even if we don't personally align. Before I made this channel, I offered Phil help behind the scenes. My plan was to pull an incognito Mike Klum and use DSP to attempt to launch my own locale consultancy service. This was before the Keno Casino nonsense, before the 24-hour email response expectation that was set by DSP for Craig. Let me be very clear, DSP never responded to any of my emails, so we've never had any actual conversations. But I was nice enough to offer help and he never responded. And then there he was giving Craig shit for not responding, then the whole King arc. I'm so thankful DSP never responded because how quickly he threw away every last shred of dignity he had for TP. It would have been too much for even me to try to salvage. Phil, your React show failed. Your politics show failed. You lost control of your wrestling show, which is now just Grill Phil, or you helping TP explain why he calls your wife fat. You learned how to use DaVinci Resolve. You want to fell to Detractor? Make a video about my fucking emails. Roast me and point out how wrong I was. Because I'm busy, it might take me a while for me to release my videos on them, so it'd be your own exclusive edited original content. Phil always does the easiest thing in the moment of time he's at, and confuses that with working effectively in order to achieve defined goals as easily as possible. He won't put in the work because it's too hard in the moment, even though it could be the one thing that actually draws an audience for him for once. I settled on DSP projecting for a lot of reasons. Mainly, Gudger taught me in order to quickly obtain market recognition, just rip off established players' brand names and well, DSP projects. Like a lot. But it's not lost on me that there's projection on my end too. I see a lot of myself in Phil, but instead of the narcissism, I've developed the self-awareness to try to reflect on my actions. I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. I use this channel to motivate me, especially for the stuff I give DSP a hard time for, because irony isn't lost on me. Also, all of you have been felt that the DSP stands for dipshit parodies, you dipshits. This is all a joke. DSP and his wife are happy and healthy, you dunces. If you think differently, argue in the comments below, and I hear it's good for the algorithm. Thank you so much for allowing me to make this video that's a bit different from my normal content. At the end of the day, I'm here to make the type of content I would want to see and to be a thorn in the side of this one fella I kind of don't like. That being said, one like for this video is a dislike for Phil, and every subscription is a personal felting of Phil. Thank you and deuces.